Hello मेरे प्यारे बच्चों, welcome back. I know, exams are literally right there, breathing down your neck. And this chapter, photosynthesis in higher plants, it can feel a bit heavy, right? But don't you worry one bit. In just the next few minutes, we're gonna make this so simple. I promise you, you'll be the one explaining it to your friends.
Okay, so let's just dive right in with a super simple question. You know, we all eat food, but have you ever stopped to wonder how plants make their food? They don't have Swiggy or Zomato, do they? Nope. They've got something way cooler. They have photosynthesis. It's basically the most important jugaad on planet Earth, the ultimate solar-powered kitchen that, believe it or not, feeds everyone, including us.
So, think of this session as a factory tour. Yeah, we're going to go inside a plant's food factory. But, you know, before we step inside, let's take a quick look back in time and see how some really brilliant scientists figured out the factory's blueprint in the first place.
Let's start with this classic experiment from way back in 1770 by Joseph Priestley. So what did he do? He put a burning candle inside a sealed jar, and poof, it went out. He tried the same thing with a little mouse, and sadly, the mouse couldn't breathe. His observation was actually quite simple. Something in the air, which we now know as oxygen, is used up when things burn and when we breathe. The air gets, damaged.
But then came the genius part. He did the whole thing again, but this time he put a little mint plant inside the jar with the mouse and the candle. And what do you think happened? The mouse stayed alive, the candle kept on burning. So, the big takeaway here is, Priestley figured out that plants do the exact opposite of what animals do. They actually restore the air. They release the oxygen that we all need to live. How cool is that?
Okay, so let's get our perfect exam-friendly definition down. What exactly is photosynthesis? It's the process where green plants use light energy from the sun to create chemical energy, which is, their food. And as a super-duper important byproduct, they release oxygen. Simple as that. This one single process is the foundation for almost all life on our planet.
All right, history lesson is over. Let's get to the fun part. Welcome to the factory. Now, the main factory building, you can think of it as the leaf. But we're going even deeper, right inside the main kitchen, where all the cooking happens. And what is that kitchen called? It's called the chloroplast. So here it is. Welcome to the plant's resoigar, the chloroplast. Now, inside this kitchen, there are two main work areas. You see those stacks, the ones that look like stacks of coins? Those are called the grana. And all that watery stuff they're floating around in, that's the stroma. Just remember these two names, okay? Grana and stroma.
Now, this food factory, it works in two main shifts. The first one is the day shift, which we call the light reaction. This happens in the grana, and its only job is to soak up sunlight and make energy money. It's kind of like charging up a power bank. Then you have the second shift, the main assembly, or the Calvin cycle. This happens in the stroma, and it uses all that energy money to actually cook the food, which is sugar.
Let's start with the first part and see how this all builds up. We're talking about the day shift, the light reaction. This is where all that sunlight energy is trapped and converted into neat little chemical energy packets. It's all about capturing the power from the sun. So basically, four simple things happen during this shift. First, light gets absorbed. Second, water gets split apart. Third, and this is super important, oxygen is released. This is where all the oxygen we breathe actually comes from. And finally, the main event, high-energy packets called ATP and NADPH are created. This is the energy pipette we'll need for the next step.
Bachcho, now listen up. Look at this slide very carefully. The Z-scheme. Trust me on this, it's a guaranteed 3-mark question. It might look a little complicated, a little scary, but it's really just a roller coaster ride for electrons. So, what happens? Light hits photosystem 2, boom, and an electron gets all excited and jumps up high. As it slides back down this chain, it makes some ATP. Then it lands on photosystem I. And guess what? Light hits it again. It jumps up even higher this time, and as it slides down, it creates our other energy packet, NADPH. That's it. That's the whole Z-scheme.
So what are these ATP and NADPH things we keep talking about? Well, just think of them as fully charged Paytm wallets. They're just bursting with energy, all ready and waiting to be spent in the next part of the process to buy the ingredients and cook the food.
All right, the day shift is officially over. Our Paytm wallets are full of energy paisa. So now we're moving on to the main assembly line, where this energy is finally going to be used to make the sugar. This, my friends, is the Calvin cycle.
And here we are, the main cooking process. This whole cycle happens in the stroma. This is the part where the carbon dioxide that the plant breathes in is taken, and using the energy from our ATP and NADPH, it's turned into the actual food, glucose. This is the entire point of photosynthesis, right here.
Now to make it super simple for your exams, just remember these 3 steps, okay? Step 1, carboxylation. That's just a fancy word for capturing the CO2. Step 2, reduction. This is where we spend the energy from our wallets, the ATP and NADPH, to turn it into sugar. And step 3, regeneration. Here, the molecule that started the whole cycle is made again, so we can go for another round. Easy.
Okay, time for a little exam check. I want you to really pay attention here. To make just one single molecule of glucose, how many ATP and how many NADPH molecules does the plant need to spend? Come on, give it a thought.
And here's the answer. To make one tiny molecule of glucose, the plant has to run this Calvin cycle 6 times. So the total bill comes to 18 ATP and 12 NADPH molecules. This is a very important fact, Bacho. You have to remember these numbers for your MCQs and your short answer questions.
Now, while most plants use this method, some plants are like the toppers of the class. They found a much more efficient way to do things, especially in hot and dry places, like many parts of India. These are the C4 plants. Think maize, sugarcane, that sort of thing.
So what's their big secret? Check this out. These C4 plants have a special leaf structure called Kranz anatomy. You can see they use 2 different types of cells, and they've divided up the work really cleverly. The outer cell's only job is to grab CO2 really well. Then it pumps all that concentrated CO2 deep inside to the inner cell, and that's where the normal Calvin cycle happens. It's their special trick.
So, why go through all this extra effort? Well, it's to avoid a really wasteful process called photorespiration. You see, the main enzyme that starts the Calvin cycle, ribisco, it's a little bit confused. If there's too much oxygen around, it can accidentally grab oxygen instead of CO2, which is a total waste of energy for the plant. C4 plants solve this problem by pumping so much CO2 to ribisco that it has no choice but to do its job right. It's so clever, isn't it?
Okay, we've reached the final part of our factory tour, quality control. So, what things can speed up our photosynthesis factory and what can slow it down? This is all about something called Blackman's law of limiting factors. Basically, whatever step is the slowest is the one that sets the overall speed.
Let's just take light, for example. As you can see in this graph, when you give the plant more light, the rate of photosynthesis goes up, faster and faster and faster. But then, after a certain point, the line just flattens out. Why? Because now something else, maybe the amount of CO2 or the temperature, has become the new bottleneck. The factory just can't go any faster until that slow part is fixed.
All right, Bacho, it's time for the exam gold points. I want you to take a mental screenshot of this slide, okay? Number 1, photosynthesis has 2 parts, light reaction in the Grana, Calvin cycle in the Stroma. Number 2, light reaction makes our energy money, ATP and NADPH. Number 3, Calvin cycle uses that money and CO2 to make glucose. And finally, number 4, C4 plants are the toppers. They're more efficient because they avoid that wasteful photorespiration. Got it?
And with that, I'm going to leave you with one last question to think about. If C4 plants are so much more efficient, so much better, why aren't all plants on Earth C4 plants? What's the catch? Something to think about. That's all for this quick revision. You are all going to do great in your exams. All the very best.